So welcome back, and I hope you guys are enjoying the conference championships for college football. The TV behind me right now is Indiana, Ohio State. At the time of recording, it is 3-0 Indiana. But I want to make a quick video, which will be, of course, null and void relatively soon when we get to noon on Sunday for the final reveal of the top 12. But I want to talk about the final few teams that are going to make it in the top 12 and kind of compare and contrast the records, the top 25 wins and losses, and so forth, and try and decide what teams are going to make it in. Because I think as of right now, we have at least, that we can say, a guarantee, undisputed 8 teams that are solidified in the top 12, which is Ohio State, Indiana, Georgia, Texas Tech, Oregon, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, and Oklahoma. So it leaves us 9 through 12 left, 4 spots remaining of the college football playoffs, and who is going to make it in for this one. And we're going to be breaking down each schedule real quick of some of the teams I have on here. Starting off with Alabama. You can see in my tabs on the top here too: Alabama, Notre Dame, Miami, BYU, Vanderbilt, and Texas. As they're recording right now, Alabama just lost recently to Georgia in their SEC championship game, as well as BYU earlier today against Texas Tech. And let's break down Alabama first for their season. So they are 10-3 on the year. Their top 25 record is 4-2. Some of the notorious losses, which again they're all going to be pretty short on these lists for each teams. The biggest one that hurts them is Week 1 against Florida State, and I think that really should tell you of how critical each game is for teams, with how they schedule and how they play, not just for the ranked teams, but also making sure you take care of the unranked games as well and win those easily. Because if Florida State was a win at the beginning of the year, and even if you play the rest of the season now, how it does, they lose to Oklahoma, they lose to Georgia in the SEC championship game, there's no question Alabama makes it at 10-2 because everything else looks great. I think the biggest thing that hurts them is the Week 1 loss to Florida State. It was a horrible start to the season. After they won 8 straight, they go from 0-1 to 8-1. They go into Oklahoma. The next loss at the time, number 11 Oklahoma at the time, and then of course today, number 3 Georgia. So those are the 3 notable losses they have on there. We talk about, as well as when I break down the wins and losses, I'm going to tell you at the time you see on the screen are what the teams are ranked, as well as what they are currently. See if the wins aged great for them in their favor or worse to hurt their case to get in. So you have that where Oklahoma is now in the 8th overall in the top 25. So it makes it better or worse, but in terms of the teams where they are now certainly has some credibility there. At least you lost to a great team, a playoff caliber team is certainly going to make it there. Georgia, absolutely, of course, they're going to have a first round bye in the top 4. So those are the losses there, as well as the wins. They also split the series. They beat Georgia early in the year, as you see on there at September in week 4. In week 4, number 5 at the time. So again, that carries weight. It split the series. I know it's a tough loss to lose right now at this point because it hurts your case, but certainly having that win in your back pocket earlier in the year is a great validation there, no doubt. Again, they are number 3 in the country as of right now. You also beat number 16 Vanderbilt at the time, 14 currently. That still has I would say a small chance, but certainly a possibility to get in the college football playoffs as well, which we'll talk about later, as well as number 11 Tennessee, number 14 Missouri. Those 2 teams are not ranked anymore. By the time they were, again, top 25 wins, 4-2, and those are the notable wins and losses for them. So even with Alabama losing today against Georgia, I still think that there's a chance for them to make it in. And it's not because of just for Alabama, but also because of the other choices that we have on hand. I'm seeing probably see all on social media and everything about the debate about Miami, about Notre Dame, even on TV. You've heard a lot about that too. It does make it even tougher now with BYU losing their game as well, getting blown out, embarrassed by Texas Tech. So Alabama, as right now, currently has, I think, still a decent chance to get in the top 4. Now, of course, you have to factor in other teams as well. I think it was like North Texas and Tulane, I think, still has the opportunity to get in the playoffs. If I've heard that right, I've heard people talk about it and predict it. So that also shortens the gap even more for teams getting in. But I still think Alabama, with their record, the top 25 record, with some of the wins, that they still have a decent chance to get in there. So that's Alabama 10-3, how it's played out this year. We move to Notre Dame, and this one is going to be intriguing because, of course, Notre Dame's not in a conference. They're independent, and I feel like, on a side note, I don't want to get too off tangent with the discussion we have right now. I do think I do think Notre Dame at some point needs to join a conference because it's going to get to a point where if they have these tough losses, the sluggish starts that you see on there 0-2 to start the year, they went out, not the best wins on their schedule. And it gets to a point like this, it's going to hurt them. Where if Alabama and BYU won their games, they're automatically in, and it already shortens the gap even more, cuts it down to the final two spots, and now you have Miami or you have other team like a Vanderbilt, maybe they can get in as well. So I think eventually, I think there's more to it than money and stuff like that. I know there's a whole other things that tie into why they're independent still and not joining the conference, but I do think for them, at least looking at the the football program side of it and trying to get to the playoffs, it would certainly benefit them to be in a conference and try and compete for a conference championship to help boost their opportunity to make the playoffs. Like I know there's a lot more goes into it as to why they're independent, not with someone else, but certainly I think that should be a discussion at some point for that. So they have 2 losses on the year. You see those coming the first 2 games of the season. Number 10 Miami and number 16 Texas A&M, and they went out there. And those are 2 notable losses. Where those teams rank currently: Miami number 12, the final spot as of right now in the top 12, and Texas A&M with the loss falling down a little bit at 7, but still. It aged pretty well. They are still 2 ranked teams, still 2 playoff teams as of right now. So not horrible losses for wins. The wins are lacking. And I think it's more of a detriment for the wins as opposed to the losses because you look at their only great win was number 20 USC. As right now they are 16 in the rankings. Pittsburgh at the end, number 22 Pitt towards the end of the season. They are currently unranked. So the only thing you're really holding on to for legitimate win to try and show your strength and show the great try and flaunt the wins you've had is really USC. And that's pretty much about it. Everything else, I mean, you beat Boise State, which they won their championship for the MAC West. So if you want to throw that in as well, I should have wrote that down. I apologize. Beat Boise State too, but if you're kind of looking for ranked teams for wins, it's very lacking. But you have Boise State as there too, if you want to throw them in there in that conversation as well. But outside of that, nothing to. And Navy as well. They've had a great season too. If you kind of click on their seasons so far. 9-2 as well. So again, you have 2, even though they're not ranked teams, but still 2 good non-ranked teams. You won against Boise State and Navy, who you beat in this one, and blowing them out too as well. USC was a little bit of a closer game there, but again, I think it's not horrible, but I do think that I've seen a lot of people question just the legitimacy of the opponents they face and certainly the caliber teams. Like, no doubt that losing to Miami and Texas A&M hurts the argument because there's very little legitimate wins like lacking in that category. Like I said, you have especially ones that still sit right now. USC at 16 right now. If you would have had Miami and Texas A&M and be undefeated, absolutely no question that people wouldn't even bat an eye as that saying the obvious for that one. But I think just the first 2 weeks really hinder that because it just makes the wins very lacking of what they accomplished this season. Do I think they'll make it in? Probably, and I'll get to the end of trying to predict what teams are going to make it in. I do think, regardless, because of part or 2 with Alabama losing that, yes, with the 3 losses, Notre Dame with being 10-2, they will get in by default. But again, a little bit lacking in this one. I don't want to say that I'm thrilled to have Notre Dame in here, but certainly, again, when you look at the record, you look at what they've done, yes, they should get in for that one. Looking at Miami Hurricanes, 10-2 also as well. Top 25, they are 4-0, beating number 6 Notre Dame. Number 6 Notre Dame, number 18 South Florida, number 12 Florida State, and number 22 Pitt. 3 out of the 4 teams currently are not ranked. The only one being Notre Dame, which was their big one on the season. The losses were 2 unranked opponents, which certainly should be a little bit of a detriment to them. And again, it's the same thing how I've seen from Notre Dame with Miami as well. People kind of bashing Miami with obviously not having, not being in a conference championship, having the 2 bad losses, which cost them really. And that one too on top of that. So it's not the best. The losses certainly are bad. Having 2 unranked, non-ranked teams beat you, and then again looking at the time 4 ranked ones, which is still hold to them. But when you look at currently those teams ranked 3 out of the 4, not being that impressive, not being ranked at that point. Again, the only one standing is Notre Dame at this point. So of course, for rankings, if both these 2 teams get in, Miami be ahead of Notre Dame in the rankings wherever they land in that last few spots there. But again, like I said, for Notre Dame, Miami, not that impressive. But again, what I just said for Notre Dame, 10-2. They have only 2 losses on the year. You look at the time when they played their teams, they have 4 ranked wins, 4-0 in the top 25. Yes, they probably will get in because of that. Now we look at BYU, who got the day recording here, got blown out by Texas Tech here. Their record, they have the worst out of the top 25, really, with them being 1-2. Both losses coming to Texas Tech in the year, which should that hurt their case because it only lost to one team twice? I mean, it's not multiple teams. It's two. You know, you look at Texas Tech at the time, the first go around, number 8 in the country, and then say number 4, which will solidify their first round bye. So is it that bad of a mark on their resume? No, not really. But I also look at the wins too. The wins are not that great. You only have one ranked win on the season, being number 23 Utah, which currently is number 15. So again, it helps their favor a little bit. And after that is non-ranked teams: Arizona at 9-3, Iowa State 8-4. So I look at that and see absolutely that I don't think BYU was going to make it, even with them being 11-2. And again, who knows? I mean, I don't. Who knows what the committee is going to do? Because every single year they surprise us at how they do things, how they justify why teams make it in, why they don't, and they kind of contradict themselves year in, year out. So I could be completely wrong with all these teams, especially BYU, saying that I don't think they're going to get in. They probably will get in because 11-2, and they might make the argument of, hey, they only lost to one team twice, being Texas Tech. And you see how great Texas Tech is, that maybe it lessens a blow compared to other teams that have, they have kind of worse losses on. Like I said, Miami, 2 non-ranked losses, Alabama, week 1 against Florida, at the time non-ranked. So maybe it does help their case that they lost to the same team twice. But again, outside that, for the wins, nothing impressive. Everything else, you look on their Portland State, Stanford, East Carolina, Colorado, West Virginia, TCU, Cincinnati, UCF. It's not impressive. The Big 12 wasn't great this year. So again, I look at that, and that is it's a much of a hinder. It's more so just the lack of wins as opposed to the problem being losing to Texas Tech twice and losing the conference championship. It's just the wins are severely lacking for BYU in their favor. But again, who knows how the committee is going to rank? They might just put them in because of that. Boy, I said because of losing to Texas Tech and still being 11-2 at this point, having the most wins as of right now. The teams I'm going through right now, everyone else is 10-2, and another team we'll get into lastly, as you see on the top screen right there with them. But again, BYU 11-2 at this point, a little bit lacking on the wins. Another team that outside chance that could get in still, small percentage, but you look at Vanderbilt, that people kind of have uproar for. They are 4-2 in the top 25 for their games this year. The losses coming to number 10 Alabama and number 20 Texas. Both those teams being close, both of them almost being in the playoff spots as of right now. Alabama at 9, of course. We'll see where they rank tomorrow, but as of right now, number 9 in the country, and number 13 Texas. Number 3 Texas Longhorns, or 13 Texas Longhorns as of right now for the 2 losses. So again, not horrible. They definitely aged a little bit better for them in their favor. And you look at the wins here: number 11 South Carolina, number 10 LSU, number 15 Missouri, number 19 Tennessee. All those, unfortunately, did not age well. All those 4 teams are not ranked as of right now. So I think that could also hurt them in their favor. But again, at the time there, you can't bash them too much. You got to look at what it was currently at that time. And they did have 4 top 25 wins. So you look at that and you look at the losses, which aren't horrible. I do think Vanderbilt should certainly have a discussion of getting into playoffs. I think they were certainly a really good team this year. And we look at the other opponents, like I said, Notre Dame, Miami, BYU, and stuff like, and Alabama. If you have problems with them losing, or the lack of schedules, or the lack of the opponents, the quality of opponents they face in their schedule, I think Vanderbilt certainly checks the boxes all across the board there. They only have 2 losses. They are 4-2 in the top 25, in top 25 games. The losses aren't horrible. So I think Vanderbilt should certainly have an opportunity to get in. And personally, for me, I would pick Vanderbilt to get in the top 12 as right now for the playoffs. And again, there's more to it with that, who's going to get in and out. But again, when I look at the resume, when I look at credentials, Vanderbilt, I think absolutely should have a really good conversation. They have a very low % chance to get in, but I think they really should have a legitimate conversation of getting in the playoffs. Like, I don't see anything that's horrible. If you want to just knock them, like I said, for those wins aging poorly, of none of those teams being in the top 25 anymore, yes, that's the only argument you can make. But again, if you want, it's tough to go back and forth when I made this list about, or how I broke it down with at the time versus what they are now. But at the time, they were ranked teams, and you can, to a certain point, you can't hold that against them for how they've been now. You have to look at the time who they were, and again, they have 4 really good top 25 wins. So again, when I look at Vanderbilt, certainly one of the better resumes out of teams right now that are fighting for a playoff spot. Another thing I want to throw in there too was North Texas that people keep talking about. I don't think they'll make it in, but you look at North Texas, 10-2 on the year, top 25. They are 0-2 on the year. Both those losses coming early to number 24 South Florida, number 22 Lane. Today, I think it was they played today. Yeah, for that. No, of course, Tulane being 20 as right now, South Florida being not ranked. The only one really being against Navy 9-2, non-ranked. So I think it should be probably out of discussion. But again, who knows how the committee is going to do things. The final one is going to be controversial. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm saying that they should make it in. I don't think they should. With them having not even 10 wins in the season, having 3 losses, having some, we look at some of the losses that they had in the season and how they looked in some of the games. I don't think they should get in. But we have to talk about them because I think the resume doesn't look bad when you look at the time who they faced and how those ones aged. Is Texas. So notably, they are 9-3 in the season. Top 25 teams this year, they are 3-2. The notable one, which was a horrible start to the season, number 3 Ohio State at Ohio State. They lose there. They lose to non-ranked Florida, and then they lose to number 5 Georgia a few weeks ago, on November 15th. How those games age. Well, Ohio State is the number 1 team in the country. We'll see how this plays out with the Big Ten championship here. But as right now, number 1 in the country, Georgia number 3 in the country. So you have 2 losses. Well, you have 2 losses of teams that are both in the top 4 for the buys. So it ages pretty well. The only knock that really they have on there is Florida, and it goes back to what I said for Alabama. If they would have not lost to Florida, they would be a guarantee to get in the playoffs because everything else looks good. It's just that Florida loss towards the middle of the season that really hurt them, really hurt their case. And again, it just really shows you how critical each game is. Where week 1, if you lose that game, that could be your season. It might sound ridiculous to say, but that can be the case for Alabama. And for, kind of halfway through, a little bit towards the middle of the season for Florida, for Texas losing that game against Florida, that's a bad loss. If you change it to a win, 10-2 in the season, like all the other teams, and they have a much better resume. And I think it really shows in the wins with the wins great at the time and also aging pretty well too at this point. But I think the best out of everyone when I look at pre and post for the team rankings. Their wins, number 6 Oklahoma, who is number 8 right now. You have number 9 Vanderbilt, who's number 14 right now. I think they're a playoff caliber team. They're number 14 right now in the country. And you look at right at the end of the season, the last game of the year, beating number 3 Texas A&M at home, and right now they are 7. So you look at the time where those teams are ranked, all those 3 teams are not only in the top 25, though all those 3 teams are in the top 10 at the time, respectively at the time where they are. Number 6 Oklahoma, number 9 Vanderbilt, number 3 Texas A&M. That's impressive. That is very impressive. And you can only say that for some teams having 1 win. Again, going back to Alabama, they only have 1 top 10 win, or you want to say top 5 win in the country in Georgia. After that, you have Notre Dame for 1 for Miami, and that's pretty much about it. Every team that they beat for notable wins was in the top 10. And one of them being in the top 5, if you want to put it as 2. And still, you have 2 teams in the top 10 as well, with Oklahoma and Texas A&M, and you have Vanderbilt, who is on the outside looking in right now at number 14. But again, when I look at the resume for the wins and them aging gracefully of where they rank now, that yes, I think there should be some discussion for Texas as well. Again, am I saying they should make it in? No, I'm not saying that. But when I look at the resume and looking at how the committee might look at things and how there are some people supporting Texas getting into the playoffs. Again, I'm not one of those people. But when you look at those ones again at the time and how they aged as of right now, yes, it is impressive compared to the other teams I've laid out, compared to Alabama, Notre Dame, Miami, BYU, Vanderbilt. The only huge knock really, it's a big one, of course, is the Florida loss. That is it. Again, if they did not lose to Florida, there is no question, undisputed, they are making it in. And I would say there's 9 teams guaranteed to make the playoffs, with Texas being one of those teams on there. There's no question. The resume outside of the Florida loss is great. Because after that, what were the 2 losses? Number 1 Ohio State as right now, or number 3 at the time, which I know Archman looked horrible in and stuff like that. But again, number 3 Ohio State and number 5 Georgia, 2 teams currently in the top 4 that's gonna have a first round bye. That is one of the top betting favorites, or top teams to when people are guessing who's going to win it, have the best chances to win the championship. That's not horrible on the resume. If those are your only 2 losses, that's not horrible. That's not. That is That's what we're looking for. Again, the thing that really hurts them is the Florida loss. Outside of that, I don't really say anything else. But again, I don't know if you can put them in there because of the uproar it's going to bring. Because having a team that has 3 losses on the season, a team that doesn't even have double digits wins, having 10 wins or more on the year, having less than that, being 9-3, that's going to be very hard to justify to put in there, and it's going to upset a lot of people. For everyone else, if it screws Alabama over, Notre Dame or Miami or BYU or Vanderbilt, they have those wins and have less losses that Texas gets in. When last year we held teams out that had 3 losses. So we kind of set the standard last year of how it was, and now we're going to put a team in there because of, people might say, is it bias? Is it because people are going to run with this for stories of what it is, and people are going to be outraged, as everyone is every year, of how the playoff rankings go and who gets in, who gets out, how they decide things. But Texas should have a look at making it in. Again, I don't like it. I don't think they should get in. But when you look at being unbiased and being truthful, you should look at the resume and see what they have. So I think it is certainly a viable option compared to other teams as well. If you look at the wins and losses, it's better. Just looking at it alone, especially for the wins notably, it's better than Notre Dame. It's better than Miami. It is. It truly is. It's better than BYU. It's more credible teams that they beat as right now at the time, and aging gracefully is where they are currently, especially even the losses too. Some of the losses are tough. Miami, 2 non-ranked losses. You look at Alabama, Florida State losing them early in the season. So again, I think overall, it's just the major thing is just Florida. Can you get past the Florida loss? Everything else is really good. It's just it really just comes down to that. Can you look past the Florida loss for them to get in? And it's a yes or no. If you can't, they don't get in. If you can, they're a playoff team, and that's going to be very controversial. I don't know if Florida's. That's going to be. I'm going to be very interested to see how it's going to play out. If Texas is going to make it in because of that. So I'm going to wrap it up here real quick, and we're going to get to my predictions. And like I said, for the top 8, Ohio State, Indiana, Georgia, Texas Tech, Oregon, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Oklahoma. What teams do I think are going to make it in? And there's other things as well. I think Virginia, if they win their championship, I think they'll have certainly discussion as well for the ACC title. So right now I have at 9, not in particular order. I just I wrote them on there. So I have Florida making it. So that'd be 9 because I have Notre Dame at 9. So I have to flip it because of Miami winning against Notre Dame. So I have Florida at 9, Miami at 9. I have Notre Dame at 10. Not excited to have those, but again, like I said, for the resume, for the wins and stuff like that, for only having 2 losses, gotta put them in there. So I have Miami, Notre Dame. It's tough. It's tough. Even like what I wrote down, I just constantly keep going back and forth on here. Again, I don't know how it's going to play out for North Texas and Tulane if one of those teams is going to make it in out of the Group 5. Because again, I've seen people put it on there for that. So I don't know if one of the, with Tulane winning, do they automatically get in? I don't know how that plays out. I doubt it. I wouldn't, but that could be a factor. But I'm not going to put them in there in this one. So I have Miami, Notre Dame. If Virginia wins, I think they make it in. I think they do make it in. Actually, no, I'm going to take that back. I'm sorry. Because I was saying for Vanderbilt. I apologize because I'm forgetting. I think Vanderbilt I think Vanderbilt might make it in. I do. I think Vanderbilt might make it in. And it's going to be controversial at the end. I think Texas. Me kind of going on that rant a little bit for I think Texas could certainly make a push for that. I think the committee is going to make a unprecedented decision on that. And there's going to be a lot of uproar. There's going to be a lot of controversy about it. I do think Texas is going to make it in. Do I like it? Not really, but I think they will try and put. And again, it goes back to, can you look past the Florida loss? And that's going to be the biggest thing for them. And I would not be surprised if the committee truly looks past a lot of them, look past that and look at what I said for the wins, the losses outside of Florida, and look past that one bad loss. I know in this, when we get to the nitty gritty, one game can mean everything. It certainly can. Like I said, for Alabama, for that Florida State loss, it sunk their season really with that. So again, I think a lot of people in the committee are going to look past Florida and they're going to look at what they did down the stretch, and again, what they did at the end of the season, beating number 3 Texas A&M. And I think that will be enough to get them in the final spot and be number 12. I really do. I think that they will make it in at this point. So that's how I have it as. I have Notre Dame, I have Miami, I have Vanderbilt and I have Texas. Do I like the list? Am I an idiot for kind of saying half these teams? Probably. But at the end of the day, but who knows? I mean, who knows? The committee could surprise us and just do the dumbest thing possible, like they've done on years past of contradicting themselves and you know, leave a team out because of this and all. But at the same time, too, if a team next year does the same exact thing that previous team did, they get in, and it's such a slippery slope of how they do things. It's such a wonky way. If you want to say it's a crooked way of how maybe they do things. If you want to go into that as well, but unfortunately I do see Texas making it in. I really do. I think that they will look past that Florida loss and look at everything else, and I think they will put it in. They will put them in the final spot at number 12. So again, go my top 12 as right now. I have Ohio State, Indiana, Georgia, Texas Tech, Oregon, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Oklahoma, Miami, Notre Dame, Vanderbilt, Texas is my list here. Again, I could be a completely idiot, and if you want to bash me in the comments because of that, I have no problem with it. Again, this is going to be all non-void relatively soon for Sunday at noon when the committee will come out with its final 12. But that is my list there. That's my last four teams in there. Okay. I'm not impressed with a lot of the teams, but I think that's how it's going to be. Especially, well, at least the top part teams, the Alabama, Notre Dame, and Miami, and BYU. Not too impressive, but I do like Vanderbilt. I think they should get a good look there. And again, whether you like it or not, I think Texas will make a push, and I think they will put them in there. So let me know your thoughts down below on the top 12, what you think it's going to be, what team you think is going to make it in, what you think is going to make it out, and we will all enjoy the excitement, the fireworks, the outrage of what at noon on Sunday it's going to be for the official top 12 for the college football playoffs.